Hi guys. So in the last video, we understood the difference between population and sample. Now the main question is, how do we select this sample? Let's suppose out of the total population of 140 crore people, how do I select a sample of, let's say, 20 lakh, right? So this sampling is very intuitive. It is very informative decision. So selecting these 20 lakh people is very important, and selecting these correctly is very important, because whatever are going to be your statistics based on this sample, we are going to inference that the same is true for the population also. That means if in this particular 20 lakh sample, if 90% people say that we are going for party A and 10% say that we are going to vote for party B, that means in 40 crore also, in this entire population also, 90% people are going to vote for party A and 10% people are going to vote for party B. That is why we have to select this 20 lakh sample very carefully. Now there are 4 or 5 techniques that are used in the industry today. We are going to study them in depth. So first is random sampling. Now let's suppose I have this population, okay, and these are my data points, right? These are my data points, and from this I have to create a sample. So let's suppose this is my smaller sample. So here what I am going to do is random sampling. As the name suggests, I am randomly going to select my data points. So earlier, out of these 140 crore people, that means I randomly select 20 lakh people and ask them which party are you going to vote for. This is known as random selection, where there is no system, there is no clustering, there is no criteria, just randomly select the people. This is usually not preferred. This is the most basic type of sampling technique. The second is known as a very smart method, which is known as stratified random sampling. Now stratified, what does stratified basically mean? Stratified basically means that first I divide my entire population into groups. So let's suppose, again let me draw this. So in this what happens is, let's suppose I have this group, right? And in this group I have people from different states. So let's say green is one state, blue is another state, people from different states, right? And similarly I have some people from red state. So in stratified random sampling, what we try to do is that we form groups within our population in a logical sense. So if I talk about the entire India's population, the easiest way that I can form groups is using the states. So states, as in UP people would be considered one state, then MP would be considered another state, and so on. And then in my final sample, I am going to randomly take people from these states. So let's suppose I take one person from green state, one person from red state, one person from blue state, and another person from this pink state. So here this looks more diverse. This logically makes more sense, which is stratified random sampling. Right? Here first we formed our clusters, and from each cluster we randomly selected the data point. So from the green cluster I have 3 data points. From these 3 people I will randomly select 1 people. So this is my second technique. The third technique is known as systematic sampling. Systematic sampling is basically when you follow a system to create your samples. So let's suppose I have 10 people with me. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10, right? So there are 10 people in my population, and I form a system that I am going to select every third person. So in my sample, this person will go, then 1, 2, 3, this person will go, 1, 2, 3, this person will go. So these 3 people will together form my final sample. So in systematic sampling, we form some kind of system, and based on that system, based on those rules only, we are going to select our final population, right? So this is systematic sampling. And the last is known as cluster sampling. In cluster sampling, it is quite similar to stratified sampling. Now let's suppose this is my entire population. I have a few pink data points, blue data points, green data points, black and red data points, right? So this is my population, and from this I have to create a sample. Now here what happens is, again for India I am going to form clusters based on state. So let's say pink people belong to UP, blue people belong to MP, green people belong to Rajasthan, and so on. Now once my clusters are formed, I am randomly going to select clusters. That means in my population, let's suppose I select green clusters. So all the points of the green cluster will be there. Let's suppose I select red cluster. All the points of the red cluster will be there. And let's suppose I select black cluster. So all the 2 points of black cluster will be there. This is known as cluster sampling. Basically, how is it different from stratified sampling? In stratified sampling, once the clusters are formed, from every state, I was randomly selecting people. But here what I have done is that I will first divide people into states, and then I am going to select the entire state. So let's suppose for India population, I am only going to take vote of Rajasthan people and MP people, and all the other states will be ignored. This is known as cluster sampling. Now, I would not tell you that which sampling technique is the best. It totally depends on your use case. It totally depends on what problem statement are you solving. If I talk about a simple example of exit polls, I think stratified random sampling is the best, because first I am going to divide my entire country into 29 states, right? From each state I am going to select, let's say, only 10,000 people and ask which party they are going to vote for. And similarly, from all the 29 states, I am going to select people and I am going to ask them. This is known as stratified random sampling. Now, one more thing can be done. For example, one state is bigger than the other, right? So in the population also, obviously, if let's say people in UP are 1 crore, but people in Goa are 1 lakh. So obviously, if I am forming a sample, I should take more people from UP in that sample and less people from Goa. So there are many complicated techniques that happen after the simple sampling also, right? Once you have formed the cluster of the states, then you have to decide how many people to select from each state depending on their proportion in the population. Remember here, our main objective is to find our sample statistics in such a manner such that they are as close as possible to my population parameters. Our main objective here is to form such a diverse, such a strong sample that it truly represents my population. Whatever can be the characteristics of the population should be incorporated in my sample. My sample should be as close representation of my population as possible. And these are known some of the basic sampling techniques that we are going to use throughout our course. So this is all that I wanted to cover. Thank you so much and stay tuned for more such videos.